Welcome to Movie Caps. Today I will show you a crime, action, drama film from 2019 titled The Informer. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Pete works as an undercover agent for the field office of FBI NYC. He has worked his way into a Polish crime organization and is in the process of providing his handler with solid evidence to indict the crime boss, the general. He informs his wife and daughter that they need to take a trip because the long-awaited operation has begun. Pete's handler, Erica, informs her team of the plan where Pete will deliver the 6 pounds of fentanyl to the general, and that's where they come in. Pete locks his family in a warehouse and leaves his wife the key. If he is not back by 1 p.m. tomorrow, she is to leave the state. He meets with Erica in a torn-down bathroom. She gives him a phone to make contact with and a wire to wear, and in case things go sour, he's to ask for a smoke and Erica's team will come to get him. Stasek and Pete greet a diplomat who has the batch of fentanyl. Following the plan, they put the fentanyl in another bag and drop the diplomat off at the hotel. Stasek goes to buy a bottle of liquor for the general, his uncle. He decides to surprise him with cash instead of fentanyl and tells Pete that he already has a buyer for it, but he doesn't respond with anything so as not to blow his cover. This throws the whole plan for a loop, but Erica still decides to follow them. At a club, the buyer is extremely nervous and confesses that he doesn't have enough money to buy all 6 pounds, but he's good for 3 and can get more money for the other 3, which are worth $85,000, which displeases Stasek. Pete calms him down and starts asking questions about how he's going to raise the $85K in 2 hours and starts doubting him. When Stasek goes to take a call, Pete confronts him about being a cop and tells him this is his chance to get out, but the buyer continues to play dumb. He pushes him to the ground and all he has to do is leave, but he pulls out a gun and a badge and Stasek shoots him. Pete is in disbelief and says he needs to go have a smoke, signaling to Erica to come in, but she calls the plan off and drives past Pete, leaving him to his own devices. He then helps to bag and dispose of the body. At a sausage factory, Pete is invited in and meets the general. He calmly explains to him that a New York cop was killed and someone has to answer for it if they don't want the NYPD sticking their nose in where it does not belong. Even though Stasek was the one who killed the cop, the general makes it seem like Stasek saved Pete's life and now owes him his life's worth. To pay his debt, he asks Pete to go to prison and run the drug ring from the inside for 5 years. To intimidate him even more, the general tells him to think of his family, leaving him no other choice. Pete and his family are brought back home and he contacts Erica. She tells him she couldn't get him because it would jeopardize their 4-year plan, and hangs up the phone. He is angry that his wife Sophia didn't leave, but they quickly reconcile and she helps him to wash off the blood. The police find the body and Detective Grants was close friends with him and sets out to find the culprit. He quickly finds out that his friend's death is connected to a Polish gang. He finds footage and connects Pete's involvement to it. Pete, Erica and her boss, Montgomery, meet up and tell Pete he's in big trouble. They have been trying to cover it all up but to no avail. He wants out, but they want to follow the general's plan and lock him up. If he gathers enough evidence in state prison about the fentanyl distribution network, he will be a free man. However, if he refuses, he will be exposed as an undercover agent and sent to prison for the murder of an undercover police officer. Not much of a choice. Back at home, Pete puts the recordings of his conversation with Erica in a box. In the morning, Stasek visits him and gives him some fentanyl to sneak into prison. Pete breaks the news to Sophia about his new undercover assignment. He spends the entire day with his daughter, taking notes on the layout of the prison. When they return home, a Polish gang and even the general visit his house. He says that he has no children because he could not bear to lose them. With that, he hints to Pete that he had better keep his end of the bargain to take the fall. Grants has been surveillancing Pete's house and informs his partner that the general has left Pete's household. The next day, Pete plays the role of the abusive husband while Sophia calls the police to have him locked up. Grant sees Pete being taken away. In prison, Pete is warmly welcomed back by a corrupt guard and escorted to his bunk bed. It is surrounded by African Americans, but one of the prisoners bribes the guard to free 2 bunk bed spots for his boys so that Pete is kept safe. During the night raid, Warden comes to Pete and, at Erica's request, puts him in a cleaning program. Pete gets acquainted with his Polish prison gang members and is given a shift to prepare for an upcoming brawl. Grants visits Erica and asks her for information about Pete, but she plays dumb. Montgomery comes in and tries to resolve the situation by explaining that they have no connection to Pete, but after presenting pictures of Pete and Erica taken by a surveillance camera the day Grant's friend died, he tells them that there will be war between the FBI and NYPD and they will be in big trouble if they are somehow involved with Pete. Sophia follows Pete's instructions on how to get the goodies to the prison and, with the help of the drone, sets the bird down on the roof of the prison. In the morning, Pete cleans the roof as part of the cleaning program and manages to retrieve it. Grants visits Sophia at her workplace to get more information about Pete. At this point, he's not sure if Pete is the killer. Sophia tells him that he cannot help them and get the hell out. Grants leaves her his card to contact him in case she changes her mind. Afterwards, Grant communicates with Pete through one of his informants, telling him that at some point he will not have his gang around in the yard, and if he wants to survive, his only option is to signal that he's willing to talk about the undercover cop's death. The corrupt guard leads Pete to the African-American gang leader Phelps, who controls the drug trade inside the prison and thinks Pete is stepping on his toes. Phelps and his men try to kill Pete until he reveals that he is an undercover FBI informant and wants to bring down the general. He is then released and Phelps agrees to help him with information, provided he is still alive. Meanwhile, back at the FBI headquarters, Montgomery orders Erica to kill Pete and stop all operations involving the general, because Grant is hot on their heels and Pete is an unofficial informant. If the NYPD learns what happened in the room where the undercover cop was shot, not only will her career be ruined, but her life as well. If she doesn't comply, Montgomery guarantees she'll be the sacrificial lamb, on the basis of trying to impress her superiors and going too far. At night, Pete goes to take a leak. He is on edge when one of Phelps' men approaches him and gives him names of people who control the distribution network at the prison. Later, he calls Erica and tells her he's figured out the general's entire network and asks her to get him out. He is in danger, but Erica does not go for it because she's been ordered to take him out and would rather save her own skin. Pete makes another call to Sophia. He tells her to turn over the tapes of his encounters with Erica to Grant and leave the state. Erica turns to the general's lawyer, who relays the information that Pete is an undercover agent. Afterwards, she confronts Sophia and takes the tapes. The FBI have heard her conversation with Pete over the phone. Erica, racked with guilt, listens to the tapes and hears her give her word to protect Sophia and his daughter. In prison, one of Phelps' men signals that he has been burned. He prepares for a fight, but his shiv is missing. While looking for it, he is attacked by a Polish gang member. Pete is able to overpower him and strangles him. He shows up on camera to alert the guards. When the corrupt guard makes his way to the scene, he manages to take him hostage and demands to speak to the press and his wife. He then makes his way to a desolate tower and knocks out the guard. He takes the radio to see if his demands are met and marks the lookout angles from the windows with his previous experience as a U.S. Army sniper. Meanwhile, Stasek confronts Pete's family, who were just on the phone with Detective Grant. Shortly after, Grant arrives at Pete's house and takes out one of Stasek's men. He makes his way up the stairs and gets shot in the leg. He does not shoot back as Stasek has a hostage and loses his gun for hesitating. As Stasek is about to finish off Grant, Sophia manages to break free and shoot Stasek in the back, but is shot herself. At the prison, snipers have taken their position and Montgomery arrives on the scene, ready to give command to shoot Pete at the first opportunity. The warden is there to meet Pete's demands. Pete calls his wife and tells her that he is going to get out of this situation. Montgomery cuts the conversation. Pete shows himself holding the guard hostage for the snipers and changes clothes with him. He then wakes him up and lets the corrupt guard take him hostage and shows himself to the snipers, who shoot and puncture one of the CO2 tanks. Pete manages to hide and the tank blows up. Shortly after Erica arrives on the scene to find the prison in flames, Montgomery informs her that the job is done. When the firefighters take Pete to the ambulance wearing the guard's uniform, she identifies him and gets in with him. After everything, she intends to help Pete by staging him taking everyone hostage. She gives him a note and a phone and he runs off. Sometime later, Erica meets with Montgomery on a ferry, where she admits to knowing Pete's whereabouts. He openly orders her to kill him, but it turns out to be a setup, as Erica has been wiretapped and has informed the NYPD about Montgomery's corrupt dealings, and he is arrested. Pete wants to meet up with his family, but when Erica notices him, she signals him that there are a lot of undercover agents on the scene. Grant walks up to him and gives him fake documents from Erica, telling him that he needs to lay low for a while until things calm down. He makes one last eye contact with Sophia before going back into hiding. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.